The views expressed on the following broadcasts do not necessarily reflect those of KHLT, Take 12 Radio, or our affiliates. The opinions on this show should not be considered as medical, psychological, or professional advice and are those of the host, co-host, and guest. Take 12 Radio and KHLT Recovery Broadcasting are not affiliated with any particular 12-step fellowship.
Mama says your brain dead, bang your head against the wall. Can't find peace of mind, brain needs an overhaul. Bonehead, brain dead, we're all the same. You can't think straight when your heart is in pain. Turn around, hit the ground, time to lay your burden down.
And now, joined by the Take 12 Recovery Radio family, it's your overly opinionated host, the Monty Man.
Turn around, hit the ground,
Time to lay your burden down. Welcome, one and all, to the Take 12 Recovery Radio Show. Margie's here.
Good morning.
Marv is here.
Howdy.
Denver is here.
Howdy.
Yes. And Dave Fleming is not here because Dave is at his new place of employment out at the Adult and Teen Challenge Center in Shed, Oregon as a certified alcohol and drug counselor level 2. I think today's his first day back out at that job, but he will be here on the third Monday of the month for Entitled to Overcome Solutions for Life Today for his show. So congratulations to him. Happy November, everybody.
Yes.
Welcome to the month before Denver's favorite month.
Oh, wow. Thanks, Marty.
Yes, the month of gratitude. Gratitude, Denver.
Yeah, sure.
Oh,
I have plenty of it.
Yeah, do you?
I just don't direct it in December.
Well, it is good to have you all with us. Our email address is take12radio@comcast.net. And the topic on this show this week, unenforceable rules that we put on friends, family, and society. We have a tendency to have rules that we assign to people. Rules that we have no more power over than to turn ourselves into a rock. And yet we live our lives thinking that we do. So we're going to be talking about those and what happens when we try to enforce those and some of the fallout from that kind of stuff. And but I've made a commitment for this month only, and I think Cecil's going to share this with you.
Okay, everybody, check it out. I've got some very interesting news. From what I understand, because this is November and it's Gratitude Month, the Monty Man promises that he won't have anything to whine about all month long on Take 12 Recovery Radio. Yay! Everybody cheer! Yay! Okay, so what we're going to do is bring you some very weird and interesting stories on each of our shows this week, just for your amusement. So, Monty Man, take it away!
All righty, thank you, Cecil.
Woo!
Yeah, I'm going to try really hard not to have anything to whine about.
Good luck.
Yeah. Well, listen, so here's the first story of the month, the first weird story. This comes in from an email I got from Peter J. from somewhere in the heartland of America. He wouldn't tell me where. I don't even know if this story's true, but it's worth sharing with you. At a Narcotics Anonymous 12-step support meeting at an undisclosed location, a man came into the room dressed as a Thanksgiving Day turkey. Actually, I can see that, especially at some of the meetings that we've attended, Marv, right? Well, in addition, he was dressed with all the trimmings as well, glued to his outfit. No one recognized this newcomer, and in fact, he introduced himself by saying, "My name is Mr. Gobbles, and I have an eating disorder." He went on to say that when he eats turkey, he has little or no control of how much he eats or how often. He just keeps eating. Well, a strange silence came over the meeting room, but as fate would have it, a young lady spoke up and said, "Welcome, you're in the right place. You're obviously not in your right mind, nor are any of us. Would you like a donut?" My gosh. The man stayed through the entire meeting and was given a ride home by the young lady who gave him a donut. That was 1 year ago on Thanksgiving Day. This Thanksgiving, Jennifer M. and Mr. Gobbles will tie the knot after his Overeaters Anonymous meeting at the church he currently attends.
Oh, wow.
Thank you, Peter.
Congratulations.
Yeah. That's just crazy enough to be true, right?
Yes.
So, Peter, you got to email me back and tell me where you're from. I mean, I love it. That's great. Mr. Gobbles.
I hope she likes turkey.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah. Okay.
They need to move to Lebanon.
Yes.
we have turkeys in Lebanon, right?
Oh,
Yes.
man.
All over the place.
That's Turkeyville.
There's a mill or
Saw
something that you
16
can,
of them the other day.
there's between like Shed and Lebanon. There's something mill. It's a famous historical place. You know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The grain mill out there.
The grain mill, yeah, and you drive through, there's turkeys everywhere. They're everywhere. So, well, congratulations to Mr. Gobbles and his fiancée. I mean, what a trip, right? There you go. Oh, Cecil.
Makes me think of Lebanon.
Wow.
Well, yeah, so isn't that better than a wine? Maybe.
Yeah.
We'll see. All right, we're going to take a really quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about... There, it's the Monty Man, and I'd like to introduce you to a brand new, unique, faith-based podcast entitled Welcome to the Table. In studio with me right now is Pastor Sean Silveri and Khalil Burton. What exactly is Welcome to the Table?
Well, Welcome to the Table is a podcast all about coming together and learning more about Jesus from one another. The table is a place of unity and conversation, so we wanted to capture that imagery.
Yeah, and we're just simply on this adventure together, talking through and plumbing the rich depths of the Christian faith and exploring how to be followers of Jesus together in a world of uncertainty and change.
And we just love for people to join us and be a part of the conversation, Monty Man.
Sounds like a very powerful broadcast, and we need to know how listeners can tune in.
Yeah, well, we are on all major podcast platforms, specifically Apple Podcasts and Spotify, so you can check us out. All you got to do is look up Welcome to the Table, and you'll find us there.
You can also follow the links right here at take12radio.com. Hey, it's the Monty Man with a question for you. How serious are you about getting to know your 12-step fellowship on a deeper level? Well, if you are, I've got a great opportunity for you. One of the most downloaded speakers in the world of the 12 Steps, Mr. Chris S., has joined up with Take 12 Recovery Radio in putting together and producing one of the most comprehensive studies in audio format of walking through the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, AA Conference-approved literature. Also, we have available for you Walking Through the Big Book with Chris S. and myself. Also, very comprehensive as we go line by line, word by word through the big book of AA. How do you get these marvelous workshops for fun and for free? Visit us at take12radio.com. Scroll down to the Recovery Workshops banner, and there you will find the links to those 2 workshops and many more.
And I said, no, 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 I don't smoke it no more.
Hey guys, this is Richie Supa, and you are listening to Take12Radio.com, recovery talk and positive music.
Then it makes it hard to find the door.
You notice how I cut myself off there at the break?
That was rude.
I just interrupted myself.
You need to apologize to yourself.
I know. That producer is in trouble. Anyway, so welcome back. The topic this week, unenforceable rules that we put on friends, family, and society. This is a huge issue. And when we're talking about people that are living with substance use disorder, that's the politically correct word, substance use disorder, instead of alcoholism or drug addiction. We can't say that anymore. Can't say you're an alcoholic. You are somebody who suffers from alcohol use disorder. What do you think about that, Marv? I'm serious. There's a whole school of thought that we just got to be politically correct about all that stuff. Well, talk to the guy that's, been arrested 100 times for drinking and driving, how politically correct he's feeling right now.
Not only that, he can't talk that long.
No.
That's a long word right there.
That's right. Yeah.
Anyway, but we do have a tendency to set up these rules in, whether it's in a relationship or whether it's just with one another casually. We call them unreasonable expectations. Sometimes we can just call them expectations in general, right? And these are rules that we put on each other. And so if you don't get in line and you don't fulfill these rules to my classification, my expectation, right, then we're going to have a problem with one another. And of course, people don't match up to the way we think about things because we're human beings. We look at just about everything a little differently, even the things we're on the same page with, right? I mean, Margie, your perception of the pen that I'm holding in my hand is going to be different than mine because you're looking at it from a different perspective. True?
Yeah.
You're looking at it from across the table. Okay, the listeners aren't experiencing that. We are. Hold on a second. That was weird. We were getting a fuzzy sound there. Sorry, listeners. I think it's corrected. But we're looking at things from a different perspective, so we're naturally going to have a different point of view, even with things that we agree on. So this little article I want to read here, this comes from Dr. William E. Austin. He's a licensed psychotherapist on unenforceable rules. He says there are family and relationship rules. An example would be a person who has the family rule that family members, including in-laws, are to call on birthdays, anniversaries, and other special times. His frustration is that one in-law does none of those things. He complains that if that in-law really cared about his family, she would do those things, but she doesn't. The unenforceable rule is that he cannot make her care or operate by his family rules. Does that sound familiar? Anybody have that experience within a family structure that somebody just doesn't do something the way we feel they should do it? And therefore it means they don't care?
I can relate to that, Monty. I feel like, for instance, my daughter doesn't call me as often. Well, she rarely calls me as she should, or text me as often as I would want her to. And, that I would consider that one of those unenforceable rules.
So if she doesn't call you or text you to your expectations, how do you interpret that?
Well, I think that she's like upset with me or doesn't care about what's going on with my life or, something like that. And that's pretty self-centered because, she does have a busy life, but that's how my addictive brain thinks sometimes. So
Right. Yeah. So in this article, he says, unfortunately, many women go through what a woman will call Nancy experienced while going through a divorce. Nancy's relationship rules included that her ex-spouse should be fair and should show remorse for his unethical actions, that her ex-spouse should not lie, and that if her ex-spouse does wrong, he should suffer. Nancy believed she was the only one suffering because he seemed happy and better off financially. It seemed so unfair for Nancy to be left with the discipline of their angry children and most of the bills. When Nancy's ex-spouse did not adhere to the expectations she tried to enforce, her unenforceable rules by analyzing, beating herself up, and giving the ex-spouse zingers. None of Nancy's actions changed how her ex-spouse related to her. In truth, Nancy was the only one suffering because her ex-spouse didn't care, and he had moved on. So she's saying, well, if he cared about the children, he would do this, that, and the other thing. Right. So she's putting these rules on him, and he didn't even give a rip.
Right.
He's moved on, and she's the one suffering because of her unenforceable rules. We may try to enforce relationship rules by our thinking that if we say or do just one more thing, it will cause the other person to care about us or to do what we would like him or her to do. Unfortunately, it doesn't always work. There has to come a time when we come to grips with the idea that no matter what we say or do, the other person is not going to give us what we want. The reasons may be that they do not know how to give it to us, that it's not naturally something they consider, or that they just don't want to. Another reason is that it doesn't work, is because we are under the misconception that the other person expresses their love the way we do, thinks like we do, and will respond the way we do. How can we take care of ourselves and take away the power we give those who hurt or disappoint us? The first step is to ask ourselves, what need do we want this person to fulfill? And so what my point here is that this speaks to emotional sobriety versus emotional dependency. When I am dependent on you fulfilling my needs the way I expect you to, then I am emotionally dependent on your behavior to be comfortable in my own skin. And that is going to come up short. So I have to look at it and say, what need am I expecting you to fulfill in my life? So you've heard me tell the story about I would pull up to the AA meeting and I would see somebody's car in the parking lot and I would say, you know what? I'm not doing this. That guy's in there today. I am not putting up with that. And I turned around and I drove off. So I missed whatever God had for me in that meeting that day, right? Because I put an unenforceable rule on this guy saying that this is how he's going to act, and so I'm not going to put up with it. I was being a future, what do you call it, a prophet, right? He's going to act this way. He's going to say these things because that's what he always does, and I'm not putting up with that, so I'll leave. And then I came to find out that he wasn't even there. His car was broke down in the parking lot. But I had put this expectation on the situation, on that entire meeting. And from what I understand, that particular meeting, I'll never forget this, happened to be a really phenomenal meeting. And it was very powerful. And I missed out because of my expectations. So there is a emotional sobriety inventory form that is on our website. Listeners, if you will go to recovery workshops, go to take12radio.com, go to recovery workshops, and click on step-by-step toward emotional sobriety, there's a form, a PDF file there. And it reads like this. There's a few columns. What is the hurtful thing that happened? That's the first column. What was the thing that disturbed me that took place? How did I respond to it? Is the next column. And the third column is, what is my unhealthy dependency? And then the last column is, what should I have done to stay centered? So, I'll give you an example that I give the guys out of the Adult and Teen Challenge Center. You got Mr. Smith. He has been coming home from work. He works really hard. So does his wife. She's raising 3 kids. And they're all really young, so it's fun, right? Raising these 3 kids. She's exhausted. He's exhausted. He comes home every day for a week, and the dishes are not done. They keep piling up. He doesn't say anything at all. He just practices silent scorn. And one day he's had enough. And he says to his wife, if you cared about our house, if you loved our family, you would make sure this kitchen was clean. So the disturbing event was the dishes aren't getting done. The way he responded, he chews her out. Right? What is his unhealthy dependency? He's putting an unenforceable rule on her that says, if you loved me, this kitchen would be clean. That's an unenforceable rule. He can't enforce that. What should he have done? The dishes. If it's bothering you that much, then you do the dishes. And so I see us doing this with each other, not just in the recovery community, just people in general. So I wanted to ask you guys, what are some examples of unenforceable rules that you may have put on people or that you see people putting on people? Particularly right now in the climate we're living in. Right? We got a politically charged climate. We got stuff going on where people are expecting other people to act, behave, believe exactly like they want them to, or else it's just or else. Right? All right, so let's open it up. Who wants to start?
Not I.
Don't?
I have a couple, but...
Okay, well, shoot.
Yeah, okay, if nobody's coming to the plate. Expectations, huh? Well, I wanted to say right off the get-go is I take inventory on people pretty quickly, and that's just something I'm aware that I do.
Yeah.
And I don't voice it a lot, which is what I'm learning. You know what? I shouldn't inventory anybody because I don't know what's going on in their life. But I'm out on the road nowadays, and these little quirks really bother me. Somebody's on my tailbone. I'm doing the speed limit, but they got to get to where they're getting.
Right.
They should have left earlier. All right? That's my first, and this is verbal.
So that's your enforceable rule. They should have left earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm verbal about it to myself and God's hearing. You know, they're not. They're back there just on my tailbone.
Yeah.
They're not using their blinker. People right now are in a hurry, and that's bothering me because I'm not in a hurry anymore in life. I'm really trying to slow down and take it easy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my number one. There's just a lot of, and most of this is because I'm not around my immediate family a lot. There are other issues there, but it's mostly the general public that I can't control them. I don't know their circumstance.
Sure.
That's what I come back to all the time is I don't know what's going on in their life. So I really shouldn't get quick judge them.
Mm-hmm.
And that calms me down enough to get where I need to turn and, do my shopping or whatever I got to do.
So let me play devil's advocate for a minute. Isn't it perfectly natural to have some expectations on people and their behaviors?
Well, yes, you should use your turn signal, and you shouldn't pull out in front of me when I'm doing X amount of miles an hour in a vehicle.
And you should be able to expect them to obey the law and use their turn signal, right?
Well, yeah. And I the other day, I almost hit a skateboarder, and I could have took his skateboard out.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to wreck my tire, so I made a quick decision to swerve, as I don't like to do, but I swerved because I didn't see anybody coming.
Yeah.
And the kid was running right towards my car, too, and I'm thinking this whole situation could have turned bad fast.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe his mother was in the hospital and he wasn't concentrating on how to control his four wheels.
Yeah, who knows, right?
I don't know that.
Yeah.
And I didn't even honk my horn. I just kept going. As much as I wanted to stop and scream at him, I said, I'm going to let it go.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, good. I got to tell that story on the air because I'm telling you, I was a little hot about all that. He just about caused some issues there. I mean, if best case scenario would have been my flat tire as he skated away. Well, he wouldn't have skated away because I would have wiped out his skateboard.
So it doesn't sound like that. It didn't sound like that you've had this huge resentment all week long about it.
No.
But it does sound like that it still is in the back of your head.
Oh, my blood pressure rose.
Yeah.
And I went and calmed down. And, I was happy that nothing really did happen because that kid was coming full blown right into my vehicle. And I'm looking back after the next stoplight, going, that could have really turned ugly fast. So I'm thankful that it didn't.
Could that have upset your entire day?
It could have.
Yeah.
I could have drugged that through the week. From my past,
right.
I could be hunting him down today from the old Denver.
Which would speak to an unhealthy dependency on his behavior for you to have serenity.
He needs to be more responsible for me to be happy.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Right?
Whew.
Right?
That's out of the
and
way.
it could have been like that.
Yeah.
And it probably would have been at some time in your life.
It would have most definitely at some time in my life, through my recovery walk, through my walk with Christ, things have changed.
Yeah.
So every day I give a little thanks that things have changed. They're not perfect, but they have changed, and I'm presuming they're going to get better with time.
Yeah. Marv?
I was afraid you were going to get that.
You're next.
It is a talk show.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. I really got a whole bunch of thoughts about this topic, and I'm like everybody else. In my mind, my particular big thing back in the day was my either it's right or wrong personality.
Black and white.
Yeah, black and white personality, and so it got me into trouble a lot on all sorts of different situations. But I can tell you that today it's not that way. One thing I thought of, part of everything, I think, in recovery or growing up in the Lord has to do with spirituality. And one of the things I thought of when you first started talking about this is there's a way that seems right to a man. At the end there is a way of death.
Yeah, indeed.
And that can, to some ears, that might sound, oh, yeah, right, But to me, when I had these expectations of either right or wrong and had them put on other people, it was causing me more problems. And the way of death is eventually we found out in the scientific world that stress brings on heart disease, or if you're addicted to cigarettes, you increase the amount of cigarettes you're smoking.
You bet.
And
overeating.
So on and on and
yeah.
on. So one of the things I've learned is to try to become right-sized. Who in the hell do I think I am?
Right.
And that's true. And driving down the road or going into the grocery store or to the bank or whatever, But I do have expectations. The thing that's happened with me is I've been able to think it through before I open my big mouth, which has really helped me.
Yeah.
And part of what AA teaches is tolerance.
Yeah.
And outwardly, if people, I discovered something the other day. I didn't even realize it. It's kind of off the topic a little bit, but I'm coming to a point. I'm 73 years old. And the other day I did some music on a Zoom meeting that had to do with the Music Association. So when you do that, you're looking right at the computer.
Yeah.
And what I discovered is my facial expressions don't change. So I can appear, and I've had people ask me, what are you upset about?
Right.
And I'm not. I'm perfectly content.
Yeah.
But so knowing that now, it really bothers me because I don't want people to think I'm mad all the time. But somehow through my whole life and what I've been through and gone through, and that has been one of the things that happened. Very rarely, now Margie says she can see a change in my eyes, but how close do people look at that?
Right.
And so there's things that have happened in people's lives that they carry with them for all of their life.
You bet.
It just doesn't have to be at the extreme it was back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And another thing I thought about in the spiritual part, if it used to be able to see that divorce was the highest, it was like the third thing down on the list for high stress,
mm-hmm.
and that's a spiritual thing.
Sure.
And so people who have these expectations on their ex-spouse and stuff like that, a lot of it just has to do with plain pain, the tearing and ripping that goes on with the divorce,
the trauma involved. Yeah.
So the psychobabalism's all good and fine, but there's so much more in how we act and react and respond to other people.
Yeah, there's a lot going on deep down within.
Yeah.
Because it isn't a matter of, like in the example of Nancy here, that she's expecting her ex to act certain ways. Yeah, are those unreasonable expectations? She's putting rules on him that she cannot enforce, and she needs to realize that. But at the same time, there's some very understandable reasons why she's doing that. It could have to do with her upbringing. It could have to do something in her childhood. It could have to do with trauma. It could have to do. There's a lot of stuff, and that's not an excuse necessarily, but it definitely could be a valid reason.
And I liked what Denver said too. We don't know what the people.
We don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I use that in my thinking, whether it's on the highway or in a meeting, and I see something.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute. You don't really know.
Right.
But that's taken practice.
Yeah.
I don't automatically do it.
So I totally understand the whole concept of share the message, not the mess, when you're in your 12-step support, talk about your day, drink bad coffee meeting. I get it. I do. But I also, it infuriates me when somebody is spilling their guts and they are just in tremendous pain, and somebody says to them, well, you need to share the message, not the mess, in the meeting. Come on. I mean, you don't know. Well, yeah, but this is what they do every week. Okay. Are you with them in between meetings? Do you know what their life's like? Maybe they need some guidance. Maybe they need to be talked to, pulled aside, and with some compassion, and somebody who knows what they're talking about, who has actually worked a program of recovery, that has had a spiritual awakening as a result of those steps, can come alongside them and help them. But you don't need to speak up with your flapping gums, putting them down, because they're in pain and they're sharing it. Because part of the message is the mess, right, Margie? Isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I know, some of the meetings, AA meetings that I've been to, there has been members there that would make a big deal out of, well, we don't talk about outside issues, but like Marv always says, a lot of these outside issues are the reation that we drink.
Are the issue.
Therefore, they're an inside issue.
Yeah, and so it's hard to talk about your disease if you don't kind of explain how you got there and what things are triggering you. And that's you just got to share the mess. You got to get it out sometimes.
Right.
You just have to, and otherwise it's going to fester. It's going to come back to bite you. And so I do believe you have to share the mess. And I know about these unspoken expectations or rules. Oh gosh, like I think that I expect people to respond nicely to me when I'm nice to them, but I'm learning that after all these years that's not always going to happen,
right?
Because everybody's different, and it doesn't matter if you've been sober, a day or 37 years. That people are just people, and some people are just not. I don't know how to say it any different.
They're
nice.
They're not.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And maybe it's not that they're not nice all the time, but maybe they're going through something that day and they're having a bad day, or who knows. But I used to always think it was something I did, and I'm still working on that. I'm so not perfect at that, but I'm trying to remember that, you know, I'm not the center of the universe, and people have so much going on in their life that just because maybe they don't act or behave the way that I think they should towards me or in life in general, you know, it doesn't have to do anything with me. And that's been something I've really been focusing on lately. And, you know, there's little things, little rules, unenforceable rules, like Denver's talking about driving, like, you know, you let somebody out. And it really annoys me if they don't wave thank you.
You too? That's odd. That's odd.
Yes. I mean, I'm like, come on, I did you a big favor here. But, excuse me. It's,
and most do.
Most do.
I have
most
to say
do.
that. Most do.
Yeah.
I'm pleased.
But
I'm pleased.
Our brain goes to the ones who don't, though, right? We forget
yeah.
about the ones who do.
Yeah.
And our brain always goes to the ones who don't.
Right.
So when I'm working with folks and they are in turmoil over somebody else's behavior, I will ask them, what are some of the unenforceable rules you're putting on them? I'll never forget, before I ever heard the term emotional dependency or emotional sobriety, how emotionally dependent I was on a very, very close friend. Because this friend was acting out in ways that were just bizarre. And we were bending over, Marcia and I were bending over backwards for this guy. We let him stay in our home. He was doing things that were just unethical, immoral, just wrong. And I took it very personally. And I remember sitting out on the curb in front of our house saying, how could you act like this after everything we've done? Look at me in the face and tell me, who do you think you are? And he didn't answer. He wouldn't respond. And I just went on and on and on, and the guy just never would respond. Years later, he told me the reason that he didn't respond is because he didn't hear a word I said. Because he was so caught up in stuff that was going on in his life that I had no idea of. Kind of speaks to what you were saying, Denver, that I had no idea of. I wasn't going to get an answer from him that night. But that whole week, I was angry. I was the Rids, right? I was restless, irritable, discontented, because he wouldn't fulfill the rule that says when somebody's talking to you, you answer them. That was my unenforceable rule. And my sponsor says to me, when are you going to get it through your thick skull that you are powerless over other people's choices?
Right.
And, oh boy, I hated that. I didn't like that. But I realized I wanted to be in control. And just like that chapter in the Big Book of AA that talks about, you know, we are all actors, you know, in this play, you know, and I want to be the director. The problem is everybody else that's in the play thinks they're the director. So now we have a train wreck. Everybody thinks they're in charge. We see this at service levels with our 12-step fellowships. We see it in the political end. And don't you dare tell me there's an unenforceable rule. Don't you dare tell me there isn't a political side to church politics. Whether it's church, synagogue, place of worship, whatever, wherever there's leadership, there's going to be politics, so to speak. But we see this stuff in every aspect of society. Look at the unenforceable rules that are going on in our society right now. All you got to do
I have to.
Yeah.
Only if you open your eyes.
All you got to do is tune on the boob tube and watch the different networks, right? One in particular is kind of a lone wolf, and the others are all in agreement with each other. but they all have their unenforceable rules. Well, if he does this, he doesn't care about our country. Otherwise, he'd act like this. Or if he cared about our country, he'd do that. Well, guess what? You can't enforce that. And if that's going to get you upset and to the point where your day is shot, you need to turn off the television. You need to unplug from social media. And by the way, there are bad meetings. If you haven't experienced a bad meeting, you haven't been going to enough meetings.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to find a healthy meeting and stop going to the one that continually you're just in turmoil all the time. And at the same time, check yourself before you wreck yourself and look at your own unenforceable rules, because you're always going to run into people that don't agree with you and don't behave the way you want them to, right?
Yes.
But if you're in the middle of the mess, sometimes you need a new mess. There's always going to be the mess, but sometimes you need the new mess. I think that if we can get and really digest this idea that emotional sobriety really demands that we learn how to comfort ourselves in a healthy manner. And I can't do that if I'm putting expectations, and it used to be unreasonable expectations. And then my sponsor says, no, all expectations. Monty, you can't afford to put any expectations on people, because as soon as you do, you're just off the rails. So you can't do that. I said, what do you mean I can't do that? I mean, you can't do that. I can do that. Okay, let me know how that works. Because I would even, hey, you're going to go to coffee with me. You're going to meet me at 2 o'clock at Denny's. I expect you to be there at 2 o'clock at Denny's. And if you can't make it, I expect a phone call. Okay, maybe that's not wrong.
That sounds reasonable.
That sounds reasonable, right? But if you don't call me, you don't show up, you don't call me, and I'm labeling you, I'm putting an unenforceable rule on you that says that means you don't care when I don't know what the circumstances are, that's on me.
Yeah.
That's not on you for not showing up. Because like you said, Denver, I don't know what's going on.
Those little things will eat you if you let them.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't take much to get under my craw. And then if I dwell on it, and that's the biggest thing, is I've learned to let go. It's like, all right, this isn't life-threatening.
Yeah.
Why am I going to drag this through my whole day or week? Just let it go, and we'll find out a solution later.
Yeah. Any closing thoughts? Marv?
A couple.
Okay.
If you look at the experience of Christ as an entirety, he always met people right where they were at.
Yeah.
Not according to the fact that he was God and he was holy didn't keep him from going down into unholy places. The expectation level on his part was just to love people, and that's pretty hard to achieve that. But,
yeah.
And the other thing I was thinking about, which just, by the way, went out the window. That's what happens when you get old. I guess. Real simple. You can't legislate stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what this is stuff.
Right?
You can't legislate it, but it is important. It has been important for me to try to change my thinking.
Yeah.
And anyway, that's
and so I was thinking, one of the things I was thinking, and then I forgot about it too, but I'll bring it back. I remembered it just now, just looking at you. Looking at your facial expression, because you mentioned about the way you look and how people think something's wrong, that kind of thing. Letting that bother you to the degree that it ruins your day, right? That means you're putting unenforceable rules on yourself.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because you have a certain look. That's just you. You don't have to apologize for that.
Yeah.
Right? You're smiling underneath that mustache. I mean, it's a big woolly mustache. We can't see what's going on. And so to let other people's expectation of you, beat yourself up over it is putting unreasonable expectations on yourself. And and you don't need to do that. If somebody is that concerned about your facial expressions and they're not willing to get to know who you are, then you don't have to worry about their opinion, in my opinion. Right, Margie?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Have them.
Marva's smiling all the time.
Yeah. All right. Good show, everybody. Our closing song is by Tommy Holmes, and it is called "It Ain't Over Yet." And this song speaks to, listen, so you whether you're older or you're not feeling well or you're feeling like you just didn't measure up or you have unenforceable rules on yourself, no matter where you are in life, it ain't over yet. There's a lot that God has for you. There's a lot going on. Don't throw in the towel. It ain't over yet. Here is Mr. Tommy Holmes.
You came to be in a room at the Holiday Inn. It took a whole lot of love and a little bit of singing. Yeah, but you made it alright. Well, your mama smiled, she kissed your face. Daddy cried and thanked God for grace. On the day you were born, you grew up fast, you went to school. You weren't too smart and you weren't too cool. You were always halfway there. And now you don't know who you are, a chip off the block or a rock and roll star. Baby, get in line. Oh, don't turn around. You can't go back. So this is life, and this is it. So this is the joke you're supposed to get. Oh, but don't laugh too loud. It ain't over yet. Well, you had some loves, and some had you. You danced all night and you sang the blues. And still the beat goes on. Another ball comes dropping down. You slipped a lot, but you stuck around. And isn't that what counts? Oh, but don't close your eyes. There's more to come. So this is life, and this is it. So this is a joke you're supposed to get. Oh, but don't laugh too loud. It ain't over yet. And here you are, and here you go. And what lies ahead, God only knows. Yeah, the dreams still come true. It ain't over yet. Time marches on. Time marches on. So this is life, and this is it. So this is the joke you're supposed to get. Oh, but don't laugh too loud. It ain't over yet. And here you are, and here you go. And what lies ahead, God only knows. Yeah, the dreams still come true. It ain't over yet.
a great fellow 12-stepping recovery musician, Mr. Tommy Holmes. Hey, listen, until our next broadcast, this is the Monty Man, along with the Take 12 Recovery Radio family, and we are wishing God's perfect serenity for you. Bye-bye now.
Good guys, bad boys, we're all the same. Saved by grace is the name of the game. Turn around, hit the ground, time to lay a burden down.
This has been a broadcast of KHLT Recovery Broadcasting.
She's a super cat, she's super kitty, meow.
Here, kitty, 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 kitty. Meow.